Please welcome to the Secure Trust main stage, CEO of BillingTree and President-elect of the Electronic Transactions Association, Chris Lee. Along with the Senior Vice President, General Manager Payment of Services, NCR, Brian HURDIS, and the VP GM Payment Services, JetPay, DIANE FARO.
Afternoon.
Very good.
How's everybody doing today?
Wow.
Almost over the end of the day, right? So, deciding where we're going next this evening. So, who would think we'd see you guys together, NCR and JetPay, right? So, let's just kind of look at the big picture. What are the advantages of bringing you guys together, NCR and JetPay?
You want to go first?
No, you go.
All right. Well, I think the key for us is, we've really been in the payments business in many different ways over the years, but with really the focus we have now at NCR, how do we take and really monetize the payments that we touch every day? It's perhaps as many as 8 billion transactions a year that we actually run through our systems in different ways. How do we make that a very seamless and frictionless way for our clients? And then ultimately, how do we provide that real support to our clients so they really have one focus, one throat to choke, as I continue to use the term, but basically giving them the support that we want to have that end-to-end type of solution for them. But that kind of sets the stage for where we wanted to go. And we looked at JetPay. We also looked at options. Do we build? Do we buy? And I think the construct of what we found in JetPay with the team, the technology platform, the speed to market, obviously, that it brought into the mix of what we could do, it worked out fantastic. And it's actually going very well right now. So I don't know what Diane has to say about that, but certainly it's going well from our side.
So, I look at with NCR and going back a little bit on JetPay, myself and my colleagues spent 2018 looking at a lot of different companies, and we had a lot of opportunities. It was interesting to see all the companies that came forward. We had, ISVs who were looking at owning their own front end and back end. We had processors. We had public companies, private companies, financial institutions, and it was interesting. And I remember this with the folks that I was with when NCR walked in the door, and it was like something said, "That's the one." And this is how I looked at it. NCR, even though they've touched payments all these years, and they provided those payment data to the current whoever was the incumbent, NCR still didn't really truly be in the payments industry. And what a great opportunity for the industry and for JetPay. And thinking of my employees and thinking about, we have individuals that really had a future with a future company who really needed their expertise, their intelligence, their knowledge of the payments industry. And that, to me, was just the perfect fit. Two companies coming together, one who provided the hardware, the software, everything that we needed within the industry, but totally bringing the end-to-end solution within the payment side, and JetPay was a perfect fit.
Great. So, Diane, let's go back to the start. Not to the start of First Data and way back. We don't have that much time. We only give us 30 minutes, so we're not going to go that far back.
Maybe long.
Yeah, let's just go back. It's really only been since 2016, right? Since you've taken over JetPay. So, what did you do to position the company for acquisition by NCR?
So I can't tell you everything. So
you don't have to tell all the secrets. Just a few good ones for them.
So I had the opportunity. I was on the board of JetPay, and really I joined the board of JetPay in April of 2014. And when we were making the change over from the current CEO and looking at a new CEO, and I had the opportunity to take that position, and that was May of 2016. And when taking a little bit step back, JetPay was comprised of 4 acquisitions. So we had companies in Pennsylvania, in Pensacola, Florida, in Dallas, Texas. And so when we looked at that, we were still 4 separate companies. And as we all know, coming into a company, we truly left entrepreneurs running their own companies. So we were gracious enough to buy them and let them continue running them. So literally, we looked at how do we bring them all together as one company, because who would ever want to acquire JetPay and having to deal with 4 different entities? And we did, so I'd say 16 and into 17, was really looking at how do we truly, what we refer to in JetPay as one company, one employee. I mean, everyone had, to the point we had different names. They were still the names of the companies that we purchased. So we converted everyone over to be JetPay. We converted all employees over to one email system. All the things that you think are normal things that you actually do in a business that unfortunately just weren't done. So it was really now putting the company together. They all realized they were JetPay. They all were, again, had one pay, one company were pay. Paychecks and everything. So we cordoned all that. And then it was looking for talent. How do we bring people in to really run the divisions and really create who runs, an operations division and a technology division. But those are things you're looking at. So I looked for leadership. Again, forming the one company, creating the leadership of the company, and what do we need to do in building technology and growing revenue. And that was what I concentrated on between May 16th, as I say, till December 6th when we closed with NCR. And so that was the building of the company and putting it together, developing what we needed to do in products and technology and leadership. And that was the focus of getting the company ready and prepared for looking for the next buyer.
So Brian, Diane talked a little bit about how she was getting ready for this. So maybe just touch upon, if you were to think of one or two things of why this is such a good fit for NCR, let us know what you think there.
Well, I think it's a good fit because, like I said earlier, it really gave us the entree into the payments business. We had many piece parts, and I think the beauty of what JetPay was, and certainly still is that we're actually taking those parts and in many ways integrating them from NCR into JetPay. And JetPay becomes an entity really focused on payments, certainly serving the existing ISVs, the customers, the channel partners, but also clearly focusing on the products that we have. And so I think the key is it was a great framework. It created the foundation for where we want to go. We have a great team, and I think the key is we've been able to kind of build and assemble, if you will, these parts now into a cohesive delivery model, and that's really the integration work that's actually underway right now and quite frankly making good progress. So I think that's been a key aspect to it. I think the other thing that's just very unique is that we walked into a scenario, and I've done a lot of acquisitions over the years. Usually you're focused on a lot of things to get the costs, get the synergies, deal with all the integration pieces. And this really is a scenario where it's all about how do we grow the business? How do we add muscle to what's there? And I think we talk about just the team there. It's the cultural shift was just a very natural transfer from one company to the other. And so far, I think that's probably been one of the smoothest acquisitions I've gone through. We still have work to do, clearly, but I think the mix, the foundation, the culture, great alignment, and that's a rarity these days. It's often very difficult to get that right, and that's really important to get an integration going and off the ground correctly.
Yeah. And I'll add to that because, again, with the acquisition of NCR, how it's changed employees, but this has been embraced by the employees, the culture, everything NCR did to make the JetPay family feel very part of the NCR family. And so employees today are like, they're still doing their same job, they're still doing what they were doing. Yes, we go through organizational change. Yes, we want to invest more in technology and grow what we need to within payments. But the employees have an opportunity to grow with a great company. And like Brian said, there's no different than other acquisitions. We're not letting people go. We're growing people. We're bringing more people in. We're investing in the company. So that's the difference of this acquisitions as we look at other acquisitions. We need lots of people. And that's what we'll continue to focus on, hiring and developing and growing the leaders, the next leaders of tomorrow's in this electronic space that we're all in. So that's what's exciting. And if you talk to any of the employees, they're excited because what a great opportunity. They have their job, they have their pay, and they have phenomenal opportunities within the NCR family. You think about NCR's in 173 countries. There's opportunity. If they wanted to transfer and go into another position, they can work in another part of NCR. So all great things for and that was something you care about as the ex-CEO of JetPay. You want to make sure your employees are going to be okay,
And I think just to add to that, though, is that the customer-focused philosophy that JetPay has And certainly as NCR, I think that was also a key through this whole integration process, that I don't think there was any difference in terms of how we wanted to approach the clients. And obviously the focus is on certainly the clients first. Employees are very important. But if you take care of those two things, the rest of it flows pretty easily. And I think that's another positive to what we've seen going on now up until this point, and certainly see that continuing as we continue to grow the business. So I think, again, it's just to restate it, this has gone very smoothly, and I think, quite frankly, that's been a real positive here to get the things off the ground quickly.
Great. So let's, it is a little unique that you purchased, a payment processor, full service front end and back end, and there's certainly not that many of them out there, and that's getting smaller and smaller with
Every
all the
day.
acquisitions, right? Every day. Probably could get smaller tomorrow, who knows?
Could be.
We're all listening to rumors, right? So I would ask, how does this acquisition reflect what's ahead for payments? What are you thinking about this could be a disruptor that folks would want to hear about?
Well, we see a lot of consolidation going on. There's no secrets about that. And, whether it's the POS owners buying payments, companies or vice versa, I think those days are going to continue. But I think more importantly, the technology change and the rate of change is not going to slow down. The way that the merchants are following where the customer wants to do their transactions, I think is driving a lot of the innovation. And I think for us, as we continue to go down the road, it's going to be speed to market. And I think, if you look at M&A, you look at innovation, you look at R&D, it all gets churned up pretty quickly. And I think getting good at this game, understanding how you can create your own model for doing this, how you can open up your environment to partners and ultimately maybe to acquisitions, is going to be critical to be successful in this business. And having done that in prior lives in terms of some of my other experiences, that's been a critical aspect of doing integrations, is not only to have a process for doing that, but have the technology and the architecture to be able to pull that off. And actually then have a good, active, and experienced M&A team that can deal with the strategy. And I think that's really one of the key things that NCR overall is doing, is really taking a step back from what has been a very successful product company and now refocusing itself as being much more of a digital-oriented, a lot of buzzwords, but focus on really software as a service, providing more end-to-end solutions to clients versus simply products to clients. And I think, again, that all ties into a business model that we bring into the new organization structure. It really comes very nicely with what we're doing with JetPay. So I think that's kind of where I see this going. We have to be nimble. We have to have the readiness, the architecture, and then obviously the team to do it. So going very well.
And I totally agree with what Brian, has said. But if you think about it, and you think of all as we've gone through this whole electronic payments industry, and myself being involved since the 70s, you look at it and what do customers want? They have to run their business. And so what are they looking for? We've gone through the period of time where, price compression and everything that went on in the industry, and merchants would continue to move in that. But I think what they really want is simplicity. They want to be able to run their business. They want to make money. That's key to those businesses. So what do they need? They want you to come in, help them, bring them solutions, And so with NCR, we bring them the opportunity of bringing a complete solution and added value, or whatever as we term added value. But just think about it. They have a trusted partner that they can look at and say, here's what I need, here's my problem, how can you solve for this problem? And that's where, excuse me, that's where I think we need to look at where's the industry going, what's happening in this industry, and what's the change. And it's apparent with all, since the NCR announcement and the other two announcements that we've had with Fiserv and FIS, and soon to be another one that's rumored in this convention center. And the consolidation. I mean, when we were out in the market, talking to many people regarding JetPay, there were only 12 companies in the United States that have front to back platforms. So think about that. There's only 12 of us, and this was last year's stats, that literally can talk to Visa, MasterCard, Amex, Discover, debit networks. But there's only 12. We all can name, because a lot of them, are in this room. And now, again, consolidation with the other two. I mean, you've already taken 3. You've got, your 2 with WorldPay and Vantiv and First Data. So it's getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And so going to market, we have to create what I call more simplicity and really solution selling, and looking at what do customers want. Let them run their business. You know, all of our customers that we do business with, it's how can we help you run your business? Because that's, I mean, they don't care about payments. They have to take payments. That's part of the opportunity. Consumer wants to use a credit card. So how do we make it easier? How do we bring the solution? How do we solve for that solution? And that's...
I think only to add to that would be simply one of, we really are focusing on what's the consumer's experience through that merchant.
Yep.
And I think back to your original question, you know, that experience needs to really be almost seamless from whether it's coming in from a mobile device or from the online systems or quite frankly from the brick and mortar. And we see the growth as we focus in on like hospitality space as an example. The greatest growth in hospitality is not in-store sales, it's all about takeout. And whether that's initiated from a device in a car or a device on your phone, you know, that seamless capability is going to be critical to the business. And I think, again, being ready for that, having also the key view as to how alternative payments are going to factor into this mix is all part of the strategy that I think we're all dealing with every single day. But again, if you focus from the consumer's point of view, obviously it's very key to the merchants, but there are going to be ways that that seamless way of doing transactions is going to allow them to differentiate in the market. And I think that's a key aspect for all of us as we move down the path here.
So Brian, this one's really for you, and we talked a little bit about it when we first met. You know, NCR has had many channel partners in all different, you know, walks of life, right, in different verticals. But you've never owned payments, so it's always been partnering with people in the room, you know, some of the companies that Diane mentioned. So tell me a little bit of your thoughts on, you know, how you sort of still say Switzerland, even though at some point you're kind of run into them and compete, right?
Well, you know, that's always a difficult scenario when you're entering into a market like this. And we did have and do have a lot of channel partners and ISVs and relationships into the payment spaces. And quite frankly, that's not going to change. It will change in terms of the complexity and maybe the approach. Obviously, we are just talking about an acquisition to become a payment processor. But I think there's always going to be areas where either through geographies or verticals that we're still going to need the partnerships that we've had in place today, and how do we develop them going forward here. So we will evolve, but I think those relationships, many of them are going to stay in place. And I think this is, again, it's all about partnership and co-opetition in many ways, that we're all dealing with that today on a daily basis. And I think the history of myself, the management team that we have in place, we're used to that, we expect that. And you know, I think it's definitely going to evolve, but at the end of the day, it's not a cut and run kind of a scenario by any stretch of the matter. So, I don't know, Diane, if you have other
No,
thoughts
I
about
think
that.
that's well said. I mean, you know, there's a lot of room for a lot of people, a lot of the players in the industry, you know, and there's not. I think the change will be is everybody's going to be very successful. Everyone's going to have niche pockets, you know, what their strengths are and what they, you know, you're going to have, you know, processors that are tied to financial institutions. You know, you'll have different variables that are in the marketplace. And they're, you know, again, it's what's best for the customer, and where does it make sense? And, you know, for everybody to, you know, it's interesting, and I have to say this because I'm living and breathing this even with my own customers, and it's like, you know, well, everybody says, well, you're just going to service NCR customers.
No.
Well, you know what? That's just, to me, and all the people that know me in this room who've worked for me, you know, when you have to sell on that approach, it's just really not acceptable. And so I tell my customers, really? Now, why would you even think that I'm only going to service the current NCR customers and you're not important to me? You are so important to me. You will see me expand in verticals. It has nothing to do with Silver, Aloha, hardware, software. It has to do with where we want to be and how we want to grow in the industry. And there are verticals that are very important to this acquisition and to the original JetPay and to NCR. So I always say there's a lot of room for everybody in this industry. There's pockets of where people will do better. They'll succeed better because they're vertically aligned better in there. So, you know, again, I think it's a great opportunity for all of us to go in here. And I think, again, from the NCR, to be brand new into this space and the opportunity, how we grow and where we want to build, it's exciting times.
So Diane, you talked a little earlier about, you know, how you prepared for the acquisition, gave some good insight there. But certainly you're anticipating probably some challenges with the merger.
No.
So what kind of is keeping you up at night when you're thinking about it? What has Brain scared you with so far? So.
Oh wow, that's
any given day.
yeah. So as in everything, we're a public company, and not just being public. I mean private too. But I have board of directors who wanted to know statuses of what's going on. And I say this. I mean, it is interesting. And maybe because I've been in payments so long, how exciting this industry is. I think my colleagues and I probably met with 30 plus companies, so you can imagine getting a lot done in 2018. So I think Chris, it's a combination. It's not only going out to visit all these different companies and talk about JetPay, and by the time you get to the 20th one, you could just do it in your sleep. And talking about JetPay and why JetPay is important and why you should be interested in acquiring JetPay, you also have a company to run. And you have to make sure your employees, as in any acquisitions, are not aware of things. So you have to make sure your employees are comfortable and they're doing the jobs that they need to do. So again, you're out there. You've got people that you're focusing on, and you're probably your best-selling agent because you're selling your company, right? And so this is a deal you want to close. And then you have your employees who have to run the company. And then remember, I have platforms, so I'm always fearful of being compromised. So I always think about that in the back of my mind, is that not only am I selling the company, I can't even be compromised in this whole thing. So you've got a lot going on through your head, and you've got a board of directors are saying, when are you going to sell it? When are you going to sell it? Show it. But it was fun. It was fun. I still have some here. But it's when you're going through the process, you're like, you're trying to stabilize a company because you're still running, you're still selling, you're still growing. And you want to be on your best behavior, as we always do, in talking about your company and how great your company is, and growing it. So it's probably a combination. Maybe I might put my board of directors first because they were like, but anyways, I would say that a lot of it, it's trying to find the right buyer, making sure your employees are stable and the company's stable, and really that's really what you are thinking about, and you're losing sleep over that.
Hopefully not too much.
Notice she didn't say that I'm causing her to lose sleep.
No.
That was good.
That's only good news.
No, she asked me before the acquisition.
Oh, before.
Not after the acquisition.
Okay.
Now, if we want to talk about after.
All right, then it gets easier.
Yeah.
So, Brian, I'm going to throw this one over to you. So, you've been in the industry for a while, maybe not as long as Diane, but we're not going to here nor there, right? But I guess I would ask you, you've worked with payment processors, you've been at a payment processor before. Now that you own one, like, you've had a few months, not a long time, but basically, going on 5 months to 4, I suppose, if it happened at the end of December. Has anything surprised you?
I think the acquisition itself was not a surprise. I mean, I pretty much was involved earlier in the stages of diligence and so forth. What has been more of a surprise is getting a consistent definition of what payments really is within NCR. Because again, as we said before, we had a lot of piece parts. And so as I used in my analogy, we're actually converting the payments out of NCR into JetPay. It really is, how do we set up, if you will, NCR to make sure that all the operational pieces are understood and really aligned to the products and the mix and the sales channels and so forth. So that was a little bit more surprising of just how do we get that alignment and how fast can we move through that. Now it's, obviously we've gotten over that hump, but that was a little bit of a surprise because I was relatively new to the company when this all came down, literally joined the company like a month or two before the actual closing of the deal. But I think that's a good thing, and that it's an acknowledgement that at the executive levels we understood what we had, but we really understood that we needed to do something to capitalize on that. And I think that's really been a benefit, but also was somewhat of a surprise walking into this. But again, good progress, clearly reaffirms the strategy, and the team from JetPay, Diane, and the management team have done a great job of kind of bringing payments into NCR in a way that really structures the business around it. So it's been very good.
What did Brian surprise you with? Nothing?
What did Brian surprise
Yeah.
you with?
It's all been good? No surprises?
I'll tell you, and
Being part of NCR?
Yes, it's interesting, and again, everyone knows me. I've been with big companies, and now you're going back into a large corporation. But I'll tell you, NCR, it's been, and you could talk to the JetPay. Well, now our new name, so we have to keep saying this is NCR Payment Solutions. I mean, JetPay has gone away, and that'll probably be the hardest thing for employees. Again, change your brand. So we are NCR Payment Solutions, and I'll tell you, NCR has done everything to embrace and make sure the employees are taken care of, our customers. I mean, everything, you know, there's been, and I say this because it has been, and you can talk to the other, you know, executives of the management team of JetPay. It's a great company. You know, again, and I've done acquisitions. I've been on both sides of acquisitions in my career. And it's just been, the thought process is to make sure we don't do anything to upset our customers, making sure they're taken care of, and making sure our employees are taken care of. And it's great to sit with Brian and talk about things that we need to do in this industry. And it's not somebody who just thinks they know it all. He's learning too, and he wants to learn, and he wants to understand what goes on. So it's kind of it's a great combination of discussion of what's going on versus, no offense, and yet again, I've been through all of it, is being acquired and someone tells this is the way we're going to do it because this is the way we always do it. Well, you know, got to change. And so we have a company that wants to embrace and learn, how do we do it effectively? What do we need to do within our back office? What do we need to do? And that's where we're spending our time. You know, there's no question, there's a lot that we have to invest in within platforms, within making sure our technology, and they have been there writing the check now, but they have been there really working together hand in hand in building the team and helping, you know, looking at where we have to grow and build within the investment of products and technology. So it's been great.
Okay, so we're getting up on time here, but I know I see a lot of your friends and colleagues in the audience.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm sure I'm not the only one thinking, when are you retiring, Diane? I mean, come on.
know.
When are you going to retire?
Well, I did that once before. So if everybody who knows me, I left First Data at the end of '09, and it was great. And then I started getting on boards, JetPay being one of them, and then also I invested in a company called National Benefit Programs, which I'm still an investor in. So I don't know yet. I don't, you know, it's like, you know, payments. I mean, if I look around the room, I know so many of you. It's like in your blood, and but we'll see. Stay tuned. We'll see what happens next. But anyways, I always say I've had a great career, and payments is a phenomenal industry. It's one that continues to grow and change, and so we'll see what happens.
We're never getting that out of you, are we? So.
No.
So we only have a couple minutes left, but I thought I would open up, you know, the room to see if anybody else wants to ask. You can't ask if she's retiring. I already asked that one. So does anybody have any questions for Brian or Diane regarding the acquisition, future payments? No? It's such a quiet crowd.
End of day.
Towards the end of the day.
Bars
No,
open.
it's
Bars
between
opening.
us and the alcohol.
That's right.
Well, I think there's somebody that comes on after us, but then it is between us and the alcohol. So, well,
I think that's it.
with that, I'll just wrap it up. I certainly want to thank you, Diane, and Brian. It's been great to meet you and
Same
get to
here.
know you a little bit better.
Great,
So,
thank you.
appreciate it.